All right. Well, I appreciate everybody who got up early, who had their coffee, and came out here to talk about AI. And I'm excited to share it. And that doesn't work, so we will do it the old-fashioned way. It is the year 2024, and AI has gone through many, many hype cycles, many, many cooling cycles, and we collectively have a choice to make around how we want to use this technology. AI can be something that can enable new kinds of experiences. It can be something that can let people personalize, have different kinds of experiences with content they love that they've never been able to have before. Or it can be something that is merely used to reduce costs, that can be used to move intellectual property around in sort of inappropriate ways. Before I get into the rest of this, for this room, how many people here would say they are using some form of AI or machine learning technology today? Wonderful. And for folks who are on the stream, that's approximately 30% of the room. So maybe talking to people who already get this, which is a topic that's black and white. And this is as an aside, this is a black and white cookie. I'm from New York. If you ever visit New York, you must eat a black and white cookie, but it is a wonderful metaphor for something that is not an easy thing to talk about. It is a technology that offers many affordances, but also requires a lot of nuance, and doing it well is very hard. And so that's really what I want to talk about today, is what is it really? How do we think about it, and what can we build with it? Can I have a handheld? Would that be a little easier? In any case, a lot of experience building AI products in social media, in the enterprise, and in entertainment and games as well, both ones that have worked and ones that have not worked. I want to show you a few examples. In 2009, I wrote a series of scripts, and it was actually even earlier than this. I was a computer science professor working in machine. Here we come with a mic. Okay. My hero. Thank you so much. Okay. Is this one working? Good? All right. So I was a computer science professor, and it was my job to answer emails from students teaching machine learning, and I kept getting the same questions over and over again. So I wrote a bunch of scripts that would automate the responses. And it went really well in a lot of cases, and it went really wrong when it automated follow-ups to my own mother saying, please reply, but we'd already talked on the phone, and she got very mad at me. And so again, that was good and bad. In 2014, I started a company called Fast Forward Labs, and we built a natural language generation system. This is an example of generating real estate advertisements. Again, long before. And okay. That project was inspired by this one, which was a virtual boyfriend app that got kicked out of the App Store in 2012 for abusing little girls. And I was very curious about where it came from, where the speech generation came from, why it would do things like this, and how such systems could be built. Because again, they can go horribly wrong if they're done in a way that is not thoughtful. In 2015, we did a ton of work in image analysis through deep learning, something we all really take for granted. But before that, it was completely impossible to take an image and be able to ask the question, is this a cat or a dog? Is this a can of soda? That was an impossibly hard problem to do reliably. Those of us who were solving it at the time were cheating. We were using the text around an image to approximate a guess at what might be in the image. We decided to look at it, and we did some things that worked great and some things that worked very poorly. One of the things that worked poorly, we tried to take a picture of a meal and do an estimate of how many calories in the meal. That did not work because there is no publicly available ground truth data that was consistent. If you look at different data sources, 1 cup of milk might be 100 calories, might be 500 calories. So without ground truth, you cannot come up with a good prediction. Another thing that I included here that I think is really funny is we did a very good job with hamburgers, but anything that looked like French fries next to water was a crab. So everything here is wrong. But we understand why as people, right? Cool. And so we built a whole bunch of different products, different ideas, all of these things around different technologies in machine learning and AI that were becoming useful thinking about how to use them ethically, what kinds of products and businesses they opened up. I've been doing this for a pretty long time. Now I work on Hidden Door. So Hidden Door is a place for fans to come and play story role-playing experiences in worlds they love, mostly from books, movies, TV shows. The idea is that you can read that book, but you're still thinking about it. You love it. You want to be in that world. And with Hidden Door, you can go create your own character and experience it. We use a lot of machine learning and AI, but we try to be deeply thoughtful about the experience that creates for our players. So I'll be using some of this as examples as we go through, but talking in general about what we do with the technology, how the technology works, and where it might go. What we do on Hidden Door is offer the same experience in many different kinds of worlds. So here you can see some very different fictional experiences with the same kind of interface. So it allows players to do anything they want, sort of like a choose your own adventure. And the system enforces the rules of the world and also creates a truly immersive gaming experience. But before we talk about that, what even is AI? And I have often walked into rooms where I have to start with the definitions because even in any room, it is unclear. Is it data science? Is it big data? Is it machine learning? Is it AI? What exactly are we talking about? If we meet in the hallway and you ask me about AI, I'm going to ask you what you mean. And when I asked our corporate lawyer to define AI for the purposes of writing a contract, he said we might as well let Snoop Dogg define it because that's as good as anyone else's definition, meaning that there is, at this moment, no one definition of it. So I can talk about where it has come from and what we are considering it to be today. AI and machine learning has come from this very long tradition of building models off of data, where we start with collecting that data, being able to predict things from that data, and then now being able to generate things that look like things in that underlying data. And so if we were to think about the dominant thing we meant when we said the phrase AI, if we went back 10 years ago, it was the ability to do something like a spam classifier. Is this message good or is it bad? We would be able to build that by collecting a training data set full of labeled data that somebody would clean. We would manually decide what are the features of this email that might be interesting for applying one label or another label. And then we would train a model, we would tweak it, and we would go through an iterative process until we got a level of quality that was sufficient for the application purpose. Today, when we talk about AI, we are largely talking about functions that are generative, which also have the capacity to create examples that look like the underlying data. We are also talking about deep learning, which is a form of model where you no longer do this manual feature engineering. And so when we talk about generative AI, the conceptual way these systems work today, particularly things like LLMs, is they take all of the text on the internet, all of the books, they take a bunch of copyrighted data without permission, and they learn from that the patterns and relationships between tokens in that data. It is a compressed representation of what is in the underlying data, so that at best, we can generate things that look like the average of the underlying data, which means that we are creating these engines for mediocrity, and that is aspirational. This is an AI-generated image. I think it's funny. At best, generative systems with unstructured input on this kind of training data will create the median of the underlying data. And I think that is a very important concept to agree on conceptually because it dictates where they are useful and where the technology is not useful. Because of the nature of these systems, it also has no idea what is true. It does not know a fact. It will hallucinate, which means that it will generate patterns of language or images that it has learned from the underlying training data, but it does not know that one fact is true and one is not, or something has changed in the real world. This is actually one of the things that I think is an asset for gaming entertainment, for fiction. The fact that you can have a distribution of possibilities for something that might follow from something that has already happened. And these models can draw from that distribution. Fiction is beautiful in this way, but don't expect it to be accurate. Don't expect it to be true. And it is full of bias. So if you want to demonstrate this for yourself, you can go to any image generator and you can type, what does a keynote presenter at Gamescom Congress look like? And you will always get that guy. I think we have some of that guy in the audience, and I love you all. But this is an example of how these systems compress and magnify the bias in the underlying data. It is not wrong, but it is not complete either. And it is problematic when we are using it in a way where that bias can be magnified and be harmful, especially if it's automated. And I added one for the audience as well, so at least we have a little more diversity here, but you're all that guy, many of that guy. And you can do this yourself. Go to Midjourney, go to ChatGPT, ask it to make you a picture of this room, and you'll see it's all, no age diversity, no gender diversity, no racial diversity. We're better than what the model thinks. I do want to, as an aside, one of the things I love right now is that if you ask an image generator to make you something with text in it, it is insane. It is really bad in a way that's very, very funny. And this will not last more than a few, maybe one more year, maybe 6 months. So we should enjoy the ways in which it errs that are delightful while we get to play with this. Here I asked it to make a map of Cologne and the best gaming locations in the map in a style of a treasure map. And honestly, perhaps it's German and not just wrong, but it's, very, very funny. So if you are interested in the technical side of AI and machine learning, you will hear about a lot of work in areas like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, in reinforcement, human-in-the-loop reinforcement learning. You'll hear about agents. Each of these things are tools for improving what models can do with a certain set of expectations on what those models are for, sort of the facts. This essentially means the first one is putting a database next to what comes out of an LLM and trying to check it against that database. The second one is changing model weights based on human judgments of what comes out of a model. It is the major technique that the large model providers use to make sure that models will not do anything incredibly harmful. And the last one is essentially taking 100 LLMs in a trench coat under one system so that we can have generations that check each other and also access to different APIs in different formats. All of these things are very useful, but none of them will fix or solve or change what the underlying technology is. And so these are all things we should be mindful of. So what can we actually do with this that's fun? Well, there is one piece of technology I would love for folks to be mindful of called embeddings that allow you to make language computable. So you essentially take a word or a sentence and you make it into a numerical vector, and you can compare it to other things. We use this extensively at Hidden Door, and I'll show you an example in a minute so it can click. But this is a way of taking language and saying, is it like language I've seen before? Is it like language I know? And doing it very quickly and efficiently. I think it's an underrated bit of tech. Also, transforming information. For the same reason, we can take, say, a sentence in English and transform it into a sentence in German with better quality than we have ever been able to do before. And transformation is one of the areas where these models excel, and yet it's, again, an underused capability. And then context-aware generation, that is, writing prompts is I think it's a short-lived, this is a hot take. I think writing prompts is going to go away. A short-lived artifact of the way these models work, but being able to give rich context to a model so that it can create information at the moment someone is experiencing that information can shift a lot of the effort of creating the details of the experience to the moment of playing a game, instead of having to pre-do all of it, but not the effort of deciding what it should be. It should be translated in context, not generated by an AI system. So what do we see in games? First, maybe another hot take, it will not lower costs. It will shift them around, and it will change workflows and disrupt many things, but overall, unlikely to be just about cost savings. It enables a creative dance and a shift in the ways in which we create gaming experiences. So the game developers become more like the directors of a play than the actor, than the writer. It is more about deciding the arc and setting up all the pieces and allowing the systems and the players to provide the context in the details of the experience. And that is something that these systems can do very, very well. And that means that unlike most games right now, where you play through sort of a main quest arc that has been entirely written, players have the ability to change the world. It shifts around what a player can contribute to their own gaming experience. It also can make things more accessible. As a total side effect, we have a safety feature in our system. Players can type anything. So of course you can imagine they type some things we don't really want to see. And we have a process that translates what they type to appropriate English language. We found one of our players playing in Russian and using that system to be able to type in their language and play in English. This makes our experience much more accessible without a tremendous amount of effort on our part, which is really cool. I'm very excited for more fans to be able to play. So how do we do this well? First, start with principles. I am both a computer scientist and a CEO, and I do believe that the principles go from the technology through the product, through the game, through the business decisions we make. We believe at Hidden Door that machines are not creative, that people are, and that even if they were, and this is why I have a drink, we can have a beer later because this is Germany, right? And we can debate it loudly. But it's people's creativity that matters. It's our players, it's the authors of the worlds. Machine creativity doesn't matter. The machine is not opinionated. The machine is making mediocre stuff because we tell it to. So how do we use this to really elevate creativity? And how do we use it to economically elevate creativity? AI ethics are business ethics. We make decisions on how we want to deploy a technology, where we want to shift the effort and the labor to. We are deciding that as an industry right now, how we want to build these businesses, where we want the training data to come from. There are several tremendously interesting court cases where you have the norms of 20 years of machine learning industry using whatever data they want without provenance or credit or money, coming up against a creative industry that values those things. And now that's going to the courts. But we can choose to decide how we want to create our products and our businesses, and we can do it in a way that we're proud of, that uses the technology well. And AI changes how we create these experiences and what is possible. So it is not just about doing what has always been done before, but a little bit more efficient. It is about thinking about if something now costs a tenth as much as it did before, what is the new thing that we can do because of that? What are the tools we need? What can we create? And that's the area that I get very excited about. So pragmatically, think about it as a design problem, not a technology problem. This is hard. So we have to think about the experience, the game design, the narrative, the content, the story, the machine learning, and the systems engineering all as one product problem. And it is very hard to find somebody who knows all of those things. I have not yet met them. So it is a team effort. It is impossible to do this if you don't understand it from the math to the systems to the creative all together. And that is, I see, one of the challenges in front of all of us. It is also being very pragmatic. And again, this goes back to having that AI understanding. Use AI for what it's good for, and don't try to use it for what it's not good at. It will not write good stories. It will not make you great art. But it can take direction. It can fill in details. It can translate. It can help you understand what a player really is intending to do. And try to pick the right experience to build This is not a game. I didn't want to make fun of any games, but this is Google, who should know much, much better. But they built a very dumb search experience that summarized information that was incorrect and gave it to people as an authoritative direction. They should know better, and we can do better than this. This is just the obvious thing. This industry is so creative. We can do so much better. And it means that the experiences get built around AI. And there are a bunch of ways to cheat and be really smart about it, and I'll show you some of what we're doing. And right now, this is extra hard because there is no expectation of a player experience around AI. We are developing it as we go, which means that players still expect what they have experienced in games before. There is no good user interface example, whether it's in games or outside of games, for how to build incredible AI-enabled products. That's part of why we see things like Google telling you to put glue on your pizza. And it is an extra challenge because we can't look to what other people have done before for how to create the thing we want to create. We are collectively discovering this. And another hot take, I think chatbots are a horrible experience, not a game, not fun, and not good for any use case. So let's do better than that. Okay. So I'll show you some of the ways we use this technology as one example. We believe that familiar tropes make amazing stories. And so everybody knows about a bar fight. Everybody knows about a love triangle. These are all things, when we encounter them in a story, that we know how they're going to go. And that comfort is part of making an experience that meets my expectations as a player. But I also need it to be surprising and subvert those expectations. So what we do at Hidden Door is have a combinatorial trope machine. We mash up all these different tropes. They are all written in English by narrative and game designers, and then they get pulled together at playtime and translated. And we've made a choice. We do not train AI models on the source material. If we work with a novelist or on a film adaptation, we do a statistical analysis like the one you see here to understand it, and then a person decides who are the characters you should meet, what kinds of stories, what kinds of tropes, how should this feel, who can you be in this world? Because again, it is using the information and the data for a person to make a creative decision. It is not about automating away those creative decisions. And it is creating beginnings and then leaving the opportunity for players to get to the end. So we use a notion we call Chekhov's armory. If you know Chekhov's gun, if there is a gun in the story, it must fire by the end of the story. Our system will set up many little narrative bits for players to pull on or ignore. Players can set up narrative bits and the system will pull or ignore. So we create a beginning, we let the player go through it and change the game state and the engine as they go, and then it gets to the end in any way they want. And to do this, we cheat. We use a database. It's a Postgres database, super advanced AI technology, of tens of thousands of words and phrases enriched with metadata, like, is this an item? Is it big? Is it flammable? And this allows us to check anything coming out of a model for accuracy to meet those expectations. So I'm going to end here, but I'm going to show you one of the things we've been working on first. The takeaways of this talk: AI opens up lots of new games experiences. It is really, really hard to do them well, thoughtfully, from the math to the game design to the business design. And this moment in 2024 is the chaotic mess moment. In 2 years, nobody here will be talking about AI. We will be talking about our favorite games that happen to use it. We won't care about AI. We will care about those experiences that are good. And so if I can give any advice, it is this: like, build things that you're proud of, that are excellent. Ignore the hype, because there is something really interesting in the technology, but you have to be very focused on creating a good experience around it. And I'm also going to share with you, we are releasing a game today, which is just a character origin story For The Crow, there is a movie coming out tomorrow. This is based instead on the comic books. So I'm going to show you it as an example of what we're doing with AI. I would love any, come play it. I would love any comments, questions about how it works or what we're doing. And maybe it will play now. Cool. And then I promise this is the end. Here, our player is choosing what kind of character they want to be. They want to be a Gamescom attendee. You get to choose your one stat. And then off you go to decide where you are going to begin your story. And here we are trapped in a coffin. And this is where, as an interface, if you don't show people examples of what they can do, you just give them a prompt, they get writer's block. So you have to show them what they can do. But you can also let them type anything they want and see. And here, if you type something that doesn't work in the world, it will say no. If you type something inappropriate, it will say no. If you type something, it will say, oh, which stat is this using? How hard is this for this character in this moment of the story? It will roll the dice for you, and it will tell you what happens. Each of these stories is a super light role-playing experience, takes about 15 minutes to get to the end. And then you get a summary, and you get to continue it or play again. And so we're really excited about this one. Y'all are welcome to come play. We just turned it on this morning. There is a movie coming out tomorrow, so I'm supposed to tell you to go see that movie as well. And we hope you'll tell us what you love, what works, what you find interesting. We are really trying to use all of this technology for the best possible experience. Thank you.